Hello and welcome. There's no more powerful an engine for economic growth than a young, gainfully employed workforce. But on the other hand, there's no greater catalyst for civil strife than jobless young people. And a decade ago, nobody contemplated this latter possibility. India's youth, in comparison with an aging West, China and Japan, was universally regarded as one of its biggest advantages. But today, after minuscule job creation in the last few years, some tough questions are being asked. Is this a structural problem? Is it the fault of the Modi government, or are we simply not interpreting data correctly and inventing a problem where none exists? Well, to debate this on We the People tonight, we have Manish Sabharwal. He's the co-founder and chairman of Team Lee's, that's India's top recruitment firm. He's joining us from Bangalore. M.K. Venu, founding editor of The Wire. Gurcharan Das, author and commentator, former CEO of Procter & Gamble. Namita Bhandari, journalist. Vikas Pandey, coordinator with I Support Namo. Pawan Khera, spokesperson of the Congress. And Anshul Tiwari, founder of Youth Ki Awaaz. That's India's #1 youth portal. So Anshul, let's start with you. Do we have a problem with job creation, or is this just something the opposition is making a mountain out of a molehill? You have your finger on the pulse of the youth. What does the youth say?
No, I mean, we of course have a problem with job creation. It's very convenient for us to say that the opposition is making a mountain of it. Primarily because, you know, we see how young people are continuously talking about this issue on Youth Ki Awaaz, on the internet. And there is a clear understanding that there is a big, skills and job mismatch. There is a severe lack of focus on really making sure that young people who are getting trained on the right things. There are opportunities available for them and so on. So, of course, it's not a hypothetical scenario that we are facing, and it's not something that's happening just now. It's been going on for a while. We don't see enough governments taking it super seriously as it needs to be taken at this point.
Okay, let's just set the foundation of this debate. Let's go across to Manish. Do we have Manish up? Manish, so your firm, Team Lee's, provides recruitment and staffing for over 2,500 companies in India. So this must be an easy breezy job for you. If there's such a problem, demand and supply problem, then you must have a lot of satisfied customers. What's the reality?
No, I think it's clear now that India, I don't believe India has a jobs problem. I believe we have a wages problem. I think you have to make up your mind whether India's official unemployment rate is a fudge. I don't think it's a fudge. It's 4.9%. Anybody who wants a job has a job. They just don't have the wages they want or they need. I think that diagnosis is important, because if you think we have a jobs problem, you'll throw money from helicopters. If you think that we have a wages problem, you'll do formalization, financialization, industrialization in human capital. Okay. So I think this is a very important issue to decide whether we have a jobs problem or a wages problem, and I think we have a jobs problem.
You think you have a wages problem, you said. Sorry, let me just wrap my head around that. So that means I have a job.
Yes, we have a wages problem. I'm
yeah, okay, you said jobs problem towards the end. No, but that means, I'm just trying to understand this. It means that I have a job, but I'm not happy with how much I'm getting paid. I hope my bosses are watching this show. But jokes aside, Manish, tell me, aren't you sugarcoating this? Because if there's an engineer who has a job selling pakoras, that's not a wage problem. That's a job problem.
I think it's a jobs problem. I think you can only have one definition of unemployment. I agree that India has raised its aspiration from minimum wages to living wages. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But the definition of unemployment is whether you're unemployed or you're not unemployed. And if you want higher wages, then is it just a problem of human capital? Why does Joe Sixpack in America, who watches college football and drinks beer all day, make $50,000 a year? And why does Ram Bharose make 50,000 rupees a year? I think that's an important diagnosis. I think poverty is about productivity, and productivity is embedded in the air, in the institutions, in the infrastructure, and the regulatory capital.
Well, whose job is it to make?
There is one definition of unemployment, and then.
Well, whose job is to create this productivity? Is the government responsible at all to create these institutions? You're saying productivity is in the air?
Oh, absolutely. India has 63 million enterprises. 12 million of them don't have an office. 12 million work from home. Only 7 million paid taxes before GST. Only 1.2 million pay Provident Fund. Most tragically, there are only 18,500 companies in India with a paid up capital of more than 10 crores. So I think you need to be very careful when you say that we have a jobs problem. We have a lot of enterprises. There's not less entrepreneurship in India, but we don't have enough formal enterprises. So formalizing corporate India is a very important part of raising productivity. Urbanizing India is a very important part of raising productivity. Raising human capital is a very important part. Of course, the government's responsible, but it's not about NREGS or throwing money from helicopters or mandating a 3-day work week or taking away their shovels.
Okay, so when you formalize jobs, it means
a different problem than bhuka nanga pyasa naukri nahi hai.
No, so if I just want to understand what you're saying. You're saying we're both agreeing that a formal job means you'll get things like PF, you'll get gratuity, you'll get a pension. That is still missing. There are jobs. Yeah. Everybody has jobs. You can be a Koda seller or you can have a store or whatever. You may be working on your farm, your parents' farm, which you don't want to do. Those jobs are there, but formal jobs aren't there.
Yes.
Okay.
I think formalization of the Indian economy, whichever way you want to do it, the problem is not jobs, it's formal jobs. The problem is not naukri, it's achhi naukri. I think that framing is fair, but what is an achhi naukri? Is it Provident Fund? Is it ESI? Is it minimum wages? Is it one who offers you training?
Okay, so you're the best person to answer that question because you are getting, how many applicants do you get and are they getting these achhi naukris? Are you able to provide them these achhi naukris because you serve, you provide services to the best companies in India? What's your experience been like?
We've hired somebody every 5 minutes for the last 15 years. But we have only hired 5% of the kids who came to us for a job. We have 30,000 jobs every day we can't fill. So unemployability is a bigger problem
Why
than
have you not been able to find jobs for the others?
We have said that for a long time.
Why have you not been able to find jobs for the others?
It's unemployability. They don't have the skills they're supposed to have.
They don't have the skills. Okay, so that is worrying. So then you have worthless degrees and you have jobless graduates, and the question is, are they qualified and unemployed or are they unqualified and unemployed? Kurchandas.
It begins with 3 original sins that our country committed. The first sin was, and it began with Jawaharlal Nehru's times. Let's take this out of politics. It's every government. It did not educate our people.
Everybody has degrees nowadays.
Only about 10%, Sarah, only about 10% of Indians get a decent education. And therefore, our formal economy is only 10% of the jobs. The second sin was that our education system did not link jobs, education with employment. Many countries have an apprenticeship system. We just got an apprenticeship act. Actually, we should thank Manish Sabharwal partly for having fought for that.
Well, we got this apprenticeship act, but then we saw protests in Mumbai because of it.
Exactly.
So I'm not sure it's solving any problems.
Exactly.
Actually, we have some candidates here. आप दोनों राजस्थान से हो और आपने ये रेल रोको जो मुंबई में हुआ था, आपने उसमें पार्टिसिपेट किया था आपने. क्यों? आपकी प्रॉब्लम क्या है?
प्रॉब्लम यह है कि रेलवे द्वारा हमें ट्रेनिंग दी जाती है एक्ट अप्रेंटिस 1961 के तहत. उसमें जॉब भी दिया जाता है. 2010 से पहले जो लड़के थे उनको जॉब दिया गया, लेकिन 2011 हम पास आउट है और 2012 हमारा वेरिफिकेशन करवाया गया, लेकिन उसके बाद हमें जॉब नहीं दिया गया. आज तक हम भटक रहे हैं जॉब के लिए. हमने काफ़ी प्रयास किए हैं, काफ़ी जगह हम रेलवे बोर्ड में मिले भी हैं मंत्रियों से, लेकिन हमारे आज तक कोई सुनवाई नहीं हुई है इसके बारे में कभी भी.
मंत्री ने भी बोला है कि गारंटी तो नहीं थी ना, आपको स्किल चाहिए थे, आपको ट्रेनिंग चाहिए थी, वो तो उन्होंने दे दिया. तो नौकरी कैसे दे सकते हैं?
मैम, इस एक्ट के अंदर है, पहले भी इस तरीके से दिया गया. आज से नहीं, पहले भी इतने रेल मंत्री सबने दिया है. इसमें एक्ट अप्रेंटिस जितने भी हैं सबको जीएम्स की पावर होती थी, जीएम्स को पावर दे रखी थी. जीएम्स की पावर को लैप्स किया गया इस गवर्नमेंट ने.
That's not apprenticeship. That is the difference. We should not think of it as an entitlement.
2.5 crore लोग ने अप्लाई की है और 90,000 जॉब्स है, तो आपको क्या लगता है सबको नौकरी तो नहीं? 90,000 तो आपको तो
हमारा तो
सबको
डबल
job
एग्जाम
नहीं
ले
मिल
रखा, हमको
सकती है,
जब रेलवे में आते हैं रिक्रूट होके, जब भी एग्जाम देना पड़ता है, फिर एनसीवीटी का भी सर्टिफिकेट होता है, उसका भी एग्जाम देना पड़ता है, हम 4 एग्जाम देना पड़ता है हमें, फिर उसके बाद में।
अगर देखिए, अगर मुझे जर्नलिस्ट बननी है और मैं जर्नलिज्म कॉलेज चले गई, मुझे पता है कि इस इंडस्ट्री में आजकल नौकरी नहीं मिल रही है, तो कुछ और क्यों नहीं करते हो?
तो ऐसा भेदभाव भी नहीं होना चाहिए ना, जो सबको मिल रहा है, एक स्टेट में अलग चल रहा है कानून, एक में अलग चल रहा है, सबके लिए समान होना चाहिए। रेलवे बोर्ड की जो गाइडलाइन है सब 16 जोन के लिए एक ही होगा ना, डिफरेंस तो नहीं होगा कि एनडीए के शासनकाल में भी दिया गया, पहले भी दिया गया।
अगर आप इतने साल से वेट कर रहे हो, व्हाई डोंट यू डू अनदर जॉब?
दूसरी जगह जाते हैं तो वो कहते हैं आपका रेलवे में हो जाएगा, सर्टिफिकेट्स देख के कहते हैं कि हम क्या कहते हैं आप तो छोड़ के चले जाओगे, आपको तो रेलवे में हो रखा है, जब आप जाओगे जब आपको ले लेंगे। हमारी प्रॉब्लम
बिजनेस क्यों नहीं करते हो आजकल?
बिजनेस कहाँ से करें जब रेल में बताओ हमने पहिया बनाने का और रेल के कारखानों का काम खोला है, उस काम को बाहर जाके हम क्या रेल की प्रोडक्शन यूनिट खोल लें, क्या खोल लें हम, जब क्या करें हम, जब हमने काम ही रेलवे का वैसा काम सीखा हुआ है।
यहाँ पे नौकरियां नहीं मिल रही है तो कुछ और ट्राई तो करना पड़ेगा ना।
ट्राई कहाँ से करें, इतना एफर्ट कहाँ से लाएं, बिजनेस के लिए पैसा कहाँ से लाएं, मध्यम वर्ग से हम कहाँ से लेके आए? हमारे फादर भी जॉब।
Okay, wait, I want to go across to Vikas, but I just want to make one point that let's remember that the farmers who protested walked overnight from midnight to 6 a.m. so as to not inconvenience students going for their exams, but the youth, they who were protesting here, they paralyzed the transport systems, they inconvenienced everyone trying to go to work, to school or to colleges. Actually, Anshul, let me go across to you. Is there something wrong with our generation? On one hand, you know, I was speaking with a friend who was recruiting for a firm in Hyderabad who said the youth was just lackadaisical. They were not showing up for job interviews. They're just not. So if there's such a shortage of jobs, why is the youth like this? And they keep quitting jobs. I know of so many young people, they quit every
So I'll tell you what, yeah, it's a challenge that even I face when we hire, when several other companies hire. But I'll tell you what, there is absolutely nothing wrong with the current generation. I'll tell you why. There is a clear mismatch that you can see right here between expectation and reality.
Yeah.
And nobody's doing an expectation setting with young people right now. We are being born in a scenario where our challenges are not the same as our parents' challenges. Our parents had a very different time. They wanted to just settle their family and so on. We are aspirational. We want more. So when you're raising a generation and telling them consistently that, listen, go out and shoot for the stars, and you don't even get the mountain, you will feel dissatisfied. And at the same time, there is a severe problem with the reality versus what you're learning at school and in your educational institutes. So what Mr. Gurcharandas said, what Manish said is absolutely correct, that there is a severe problem with our education system. We are not learning what is actually needed. So when we go out there, we're dissatisfied. We don't get what we really want. We don't get to achieve what we really want. So there are several issues here, and that's why, we obviously can't pin the blame on and just say that this is a generational problem. There are several issues right here that we need to address one at a time.
Okay, Vikas, Anshul says there's the difference between expectations and reality. Is the Prime Minister responsible for raising expectations? He promised, 2 crore jobs a year? What happened to that promise?
Tell me one thing. I was just listening to a lot of statistics being thrown around. There is obviously unemployment, but I saw there was a minor increase in unemployment from 3.5 to 3.6, which is bad. At the same time, let me talk the statistics of what government is doing. Government has raised
what happened to that 2 crore jobs that were promised?
I'm coming to it. So government is not just talking about organized sector, the pun which the Wire and people from Congress keep on making about pakoda sellers and all. Thing is that they are hard workers, and government of India. Hold on. So what government of India is saying, that it has also started with something called Mudra Yojana. You should be aware about its reach. It has given 8 crore people the money they need. At the same time, it has generated around 4.5 to 5.5 crores of unorganized sectors job. And it's not just job. If you are making someone as an entrepreneur, you are actually enabling him to employ other 3 to 4 people more. So let's not talk about people who get fixed salaries and PF and everything. Jobs are all around, and they are in different forms. The gentleman here was saying that from where will I get the money from? So I just wanted to educate him that there are institutions working day and night to give money for these needs also. At the same time, there is something called Stand Up India, which has given loans to 55,000 people, which are specific to the SC/ST category and women, for loan of 10 lakhs to 1 crores. So those are also creating a lot of jobs, and especially in improvised sectors.
जो program थी, came under Skill India? ये Skill India की program है. Okay, fine. You're saying the government is doing enough, even though you haven't answered the question about the 2 crore jobs. Pawan, respond here. The government is acting on the ground.
No, let me start with the so-called pun. I think it was the Prime Minister who said that pakoda bechna bhi ek naukri hai. Where will the jobs come from, Sara? The lowest domestic investment in the last 25 years we are witnessing today. After all, jobs come from the private sector, and the private sector is on its knees. Agriculture is going through a huge, very, very deep distress, and I'm not blaming X government or Y government. Agriculture is in a distress. Telecom sector got sabotaged by what I call a sponsored activism of the Vinod Rai variety. You know what's happening to the telecom sector. Look at the power sector. Again, sponsored activism. Look at, you auction coal blocks, and then you get into huge NPAs. Come to the IT sector. These were the job providers.
But
again, tanked. No, wait.
Jobs have started to fall
Liberalization
since
opened a lot of opportunities, Sara, for the middle class youth at least. Now, for the first time, the middle class youth
10
is
lakh
going through this
jobs
crisis.
under Dr. Manmohan Singh, but in 2013, it fell to about 4.19,
Absolutely.
right? So
I am talking about the sponsored activism which brought a policy paralysis under UPA 2 in the last 2 years of UPA 2. I blame Vinod Rai and all these so-called activists who went about sabotaging every reform, everything under the sun. And now they talk about Skill India, Stand Up. I'm sorry, it's Fed Up India.
Okay, hold on. If it's Fed Up India, why are we not seeing these protests, etc., out on the streets? If it's true that there's a job problem.
Well, what kind of protests? I mean, people will vote. In 2019, you'll see which way the youth of this country are voting. So last time they voted for the BJP in the hope that the Prime Minister gave a lot of hope. In fact, I attended several of his meetings, UP, Bihar, and he said, I want you, the youths, to give me 10 years of your life and I'll improve your lives, etc. So you'll see in 2019 which way they vote. And sir, I want to say something here. It's not just the Wire or the Congress which is talking about jobs problem. Some of their own websites, which are BJP leaning websites, are very, very critical.
But that's irrelevant.
Yeah,
if it is a problem, it must be talked about. It is the job of the media to talk about it. So let's not go into that.
So let's talk about the biggest survey that this government conducts on an annual basis. It's called Labour Bureau Survey, annual survey, with a sample size of 1,55,000 households, and they interview 7.5 lakh people. It is a bigger sample than the NSSO, and
Yes.
it's a very solid survey, been going on since 2010.
Yes.
And the fifth survey, 2015-16, showed that jobs actually fell. The number of jobs in the country fell from 480 million in 2013-14, which was one of the worst years of GDP growth under the UPA. From there, it fell to 467 million. There's a 13 million drop,
Yes.
which economists have written about, talked about. Now, the thing is, this government should then actually get into a serious inquiry as to what is going on. There is a problem. It's a structural problem. I'm
You
not
don't
saying
think
that
the government sees this as a structural problem?
It's a structural problem. So, Mr. Modi also talked about, some of his advisors when this government came, they talked about the structural problem. Even in 8.5% growth, which Mr. Rahul Gandhi has admitted did not generate enough jobs. So how do you expect jobs to be generated at 7% growth, right? So growth is lower today than it was, say, 5 years ago, 6 years ago. So that is the problem which people need to go into, the structure, the changing structure of the economy. Why is manufacturing, within that survey, manufacturing is showing a reduction in jobs, whereas retail and wholesale is showing a slight increase.
Okay, you talked about GDP and jobless growth. Gurcharan, economists, I mean, for you all, this is well known. These are terms you all use in everyday vocabulary. But for us laypersons, explain this to us. How can India still have, even though our GDP has fallen, it's still amongst the highest in the world. How can that not translate into jobs?
Well, I think I was going to talk about the third original sin, and that's really the answer to this question. And Manish was trying to explain this, that the problem of India is not unemployment, it's underemployment.
Exactly. Yeah.
And also, no country in other words, became a prosperous country unless it sustained 8% plus growth for 2-3 decades consistently. Now, we can also do it, but the original sin began because from the beginning of our republic, we were pessimistic about exports. In fact, we had closed our economy till 1991 when we opened our economy. Even today, this government,
for reasons, you had to feed your own
this
people,
government was going to bring a real change in mindset. But the Make in India, it should not be called Make in India. It should be called Make in India for the world. Because the productive jobs, not the pakoda, what we want are productive jobs, not pakoda wala jobs, and those productive jobs come only through exports. We have to remember that.
No,
and
but who's
those
going to make in
people who
India
are
if you're
pessimistic,
saying that people
Sarah,
aren't qualified, if they are like not,
no, but wait a
their
minute.
degrees are all
You
not
know,
from nonsensical institutes.
People are pessimistic, but the fact is, even today, $1.7 trillion worth of goods are traded between countries. India's share is only 1.7%. All the Asian tigers, China, all of them participated in that.
If Manish is saying that we have unemployable graduates, he only employs one person every 5 minutes, but 90% of people who are applying to his firm aren't getting jobs because they're unemployable. Who's going to do the Make in India?
Another data point. The Skills Development Ministry made a huge effort. I must say they did make an effort under the Prime Minister Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana, and they huge allocations. They try to link skills to actually users of those skills, which is industry. Industry was involved in skilling them. After all that, the government itself set up an internal committee to check the outcome, which happened last year. And one economist who was on that committee told me that they found that less than 10% of those skilled actually got jobs. So what does that tell you? That there are no manufacturing jobs, because the economic survey says, Arvind Subramaniam says, that India has gone through one of the longest episodes, a serious episode of decline in private investment.
But it also says that we have received the highest foreign direct investment in the world, and all that investment has been
that is subsumed in the private investment.
No,
but that is subsumed in the private investment figure, right?
Hold on. But what I'm saying is that it's all in the manufacturing sector that this FDI has come. So there is $1.7 trillion worth of goods are being exported, and surely we should have even if our share goes from 1.7 to 2, we'll get a demographic dividend.
You're sure, you're right, but FDI is subsumed in the private investment figures. No, it is not showing up in the, because FDI alone cannot drive this
anyway,
economy.
with Trump's now closing the borders in the US, I don't know if that's happening. China's probably going to start exporting to us if Trump closes the borders to him. But the question is, what is the social impact of all of this going to be? Namita, come in here, because you've been reporting that India also has the position of having the most number of women dropping out of the workforce.
Yeah, this is a very well documented data, and it astounds me that this is never given the kind of importance that it should be given, either by government or by policymakers or by economists or even by feminist groups. I mean, the fact is that 19.6 million women have simply fallen off our labor map, whichever way you want to slice the data. This is rural, urban, formal, informal, educated, illiterate. They've all been dropping off. The largest drop has happened.
Even while education rates for women are going up in India.
While this actually started happening post 92. The great liberalization, which was supposed to create all these jobs, did not create jobs for women. It left women out, and not only left women out, it actually turned women against employment. And
You're blaming liberalization for
I'm
that?
not blaming liberalization. I'm saying it started at not a good channel. Please listen to me. You have to hear. And I'm saying it began in 92. The decline began in 92.
Don't make a causal connection.
I think
I'm not causal. Listen, I'm just saying. Listen,
I think we can agree with Namita. This is a crucial issue. We must, in fact, probably do a full show on it.
This is exactly what I'm saying. Women's issues never get the attention. We are never heard, and that really is a problem. But apart from that, continuing with what I was saying, I think this is a crisis. I think this, part of my work for the last 8 months has been to travel across India, understanding from women why they are choosing to opt out. The good news is that a lot of women who are actually opting out of labor are in school. So at the 15, 16, 17, 20-year-old age group, they're in school. I was in Haryana last week at a women's university where women from villages, surrounding villages, are actually doing their PhDs and their MPhils. The point is, education is unfortunately becoming an end in itself. It's not leading to jobs even for women. You know, so so I'll give you another data
still
set.
is a positive.
Another little data set. You know, following demonetization, media ran with this huge story about 1.5 million jobs lost in the first 4 months of demonetization. But if you look at the gender, if you look at it through a gender lens, 0.9 million men came into work. They came into jobs. 2.6 million women fell off the labor map in the first 4 months. So everybody who lost jobs were women. Nobody reported it. And this is what I mean, that you know, when women fall off, it's invisible.
And
nobody
it goes
hears
against the
them
whole
falling
narrative
off.
of India modernizing,
Yeah.
right? But I think it's crucial, not about who's to blame, not that liberalization is to blame in this case. I think the point is, when jobs are lost, the weakest section of society will be affected, and women are the weakest section of society, especially in India.
Exactly.
We have so much
Manish is
stacked
talking-
against women. But let's go across the audience over here. I just want to have a little pop quiz with all of you, all school students, college graduates at least. Okay. Can you answer, can any one of you answer these questions? Which is the biggest constellation? Anyone? It's the Hydra. Who was the 44th Chief Justice of India? Nobody. Justice Kehar. Okay, anyone over here? What is the acid found in vinegar? Now these, very good. Wow, thank God. Now
We failed that one, I think.
No, listen. Many doctors here. All of you must be doctors.
No,
Or
I'm
some-
engineer.
Okay, so great. Okay, now this was not the questionnaire from the IIT exam. This was the questionnaire in the BMC for people applying for jobs for sweepers posts, for crematorium assistant posts, and other basic hospital ward boy posts. So what does this tell us?
No, I'll tell you one more question. In SSC examination, once SSC asked that what is the height of Deepika Padukone. So this is the level of question. Yeah,
I don't believe that.
Yeah.
It's general knowledge.
yes. So this is the level of
Let's
question they are
ask, how many
asking.
of you know this question at least?
So actually, the question was the comparison between Deepika Padukone and some other actress. But this was the question,
Wow.
and this is the level of question they are asking in the government examination. Then how can you expect that our youth will contribute in making India a developed country in next 2-3 years?
I think this is a
And sir, the main issue is no one is talking about. So all of you are talking about the employment and all, unemployment and all this section, but no one is talking about the education sector. Why?
No, they
can
are.
you?
They are
Yeah, no.
saying that's
Can
the
you
problem.
answer why government has reduced the budget almost 40% from 50,000 crore to 26,000 crore this year? And you are investing 2,600 crore rupees on Skill India, where the employment, like sir said, that only 10% people got the job, and out of 30 lakh, only 2 lakh 90,000 people got the job. You are wasting the money in.
It's not wasting
in those,
the money.
Yeah, it's wasting the money.
It's giving the opportunity to rest of the 90% people to come up with that job, that skill, so that they are employable enough. If they are not getting job, that is another serious problem. But you have to understand,
That's a
giving-
macroeconomic problem.
that government is not responsible to deliver job at your doorstep. Even I have been through the job, I have given a lot of interviews. I was not selected in most of them, and I got selected in one, and then I got job.
but
whatever.
you know the
But
government's
Okay,
job.
one second.
The government,
job
what I'm
is-
saying, government job, and it is doing fine. It's not that you should we can complain everything on government saying it's not doing fine.
But I'm saying the government's, the problem is the RTE. The Right to Education Act does not measure outcomes. All it's interested in is inputs. And that is one of the biggest problems why we are creating unemployable graduates, because they are not even learning a fifth
Okay,
class.
let's hear from one of them. You're an engineer, you said. You
Yeah,
sat
I
with
didn't
the
know
SSC
what
exam.
job
The
I
one
was
where
class
the whole
five,
exam was
that a
related.
child
You
cannot read a
are
class
what
But
people
that
are
is true for
calling
everywhere.
unemployable today. There are just too many engineers applying, and it seems now even IT is not going to be hiring jobs.
For the first time, IT is showing a decline in.
Exactly.
So doesn't that worry you?
No, actually, I am right now. I am employed.
Okay.
I'm working with a multinational firm, so I am employed right now.
Then why were you?
So yeah,
Protesting
why
then?
I'm protesting against the corruption. So every Indian should protest against corruption, not only students. the
What
parents
corruption
also.
has happened in
So yeah,
India?
so the corruption is the SSC cheating scam.
Let me
We have
tell you what
provided
happened
all
in
these
SSC.
proofs. Yeah.
Out of 50,000 or so centers, 2 centers had some problem, and then you should compare about how it was handled in UPA era and how it was handled by NDA
No,
era.
no,
Just hold on.
actually-
You had your time.
Yeah.
Let me reply to that.
Sure, sure.
SSC scam two MPs were with the students all the time, hearing their grievances and reporting back
I don't
to the
want to make
government.
this a debate about the SSC scam. We have separate shows on that.
And
Let's
it's
talk
not
about
just
employment.
because
You have a
interested in
problem.
NDA
You have a
versus
job.
UPA.
You're
No,
happy.
why not? Why
You have a
not?
job. You're happy.
Because
They are
I have a job,
apolitical,
but
they are not talking about
I'm
Congress
just talking-
or BJP.
Why are
Don't-
you not
Yeah,
happy?
let's not
Look,
politicize
it's not
it.
about
It is all
SSC.
about how
This is
the
not about SSC
responses-
scam,
how the
please.
responses-
We have separate shows on SSC
Yeah.
scams, and I'll have you both come on and
See,
I'll
you
let
started by
the
saying
guests
it's a
know.
structural
Hold
issue,
on.
so why
This is a
politicize
show
it?
about unemployment. You have a job with an MNC, which
Yes,
means you must be happy.
I am happy, but actually youth is not happy because
No,
once
are
Manish
you
said-
happy or not happy? If you're happy, then let's move on.
You're pretty much youth, yeah.
yeah, I'm pretty much happy about my job, about my salary,
here are.
but I am not happy with the
his
youth
bosses are
because
listening.
they are not getting the job which is dignified. They are getting once they are investing around 8 lakh, 10 lakh rupees for engineering, and they are getting jobs of 15,000 per month.
Okay, let's hear from ma'am.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would rather say, why do we say that number of employment created or number of jobs created? How many dignified jobs are we creating? You ask a student to leave his home and come to a metro city and work for 15,000 and survive. A pakoda wala is still a better, he's earning 20,000 and he's living in his own house. Why are we stealing their own dignity, their self-respect from our youth? We have to give them that respect. An engineer gets 15,000 in Delhi or NCR, and how can he manage one house or one basic electricity bill, and his living standard will be so low that within 1 year he will leave that job, go back to his home,
ma'am.
he will
Ma'am,
start
I
a
started
pakoda
with
shop in
7,000.
front of
I'm
his
also
house and
engineer.
survive in a
I'm
better
well
country.
off
What do
today.
you do, ma'am?
Ma'am, I am a training and placement officer with GB Pant Institute of Technology, which is a 3 years diploma polytechnic. My students are actually, sir, can you please give me a chance?
Okay, because let him finish, then I'll come to you.
I am
Promise.
here to show that pain which I see in the eyes of my students when they are offered a job in Chhattisgarh and they are hardly paid 10,000 or 12,000. They say simply, ma'am, मैं वहाँ कैसे survive करूँगा? घर पे भी तो 2-4 हज़ार भेजने होंगे. They are actually from the middle class strata of the country's capital. I'm not talking about any other place. I'm talking about the capital city.
Okay, hold on.
Ma'am,
Vikas, go ahead.
I will just answer to that quickly.
Let
It's
Vikas
a
finish
very
and then you
generic, ma'am, don't take it otherwise. I also started very, very low job salary wise because 2003 lot of layoffs happened. I was also from the IT sector. I'm still in. Now I'm doing very fine. So saying that youth will get disappointed by getting so much less job, it is very, very wrong to assume the power of youth when they are employed. Initially, the power should be, the focus should be of learning than more than earning, and I think most of the people who are getting that will work hard and eventually will earn also very good.
You know, I respect your idealism, but it's not realistic at all. Exactly. Because the truth is, I mean, I'm glad you really, you know, made your way up, but we can't generalize it for everyone. Yeah. There are, you know, you see cab drivers in a city like Delhi, qualified engineers, 55% marks they got when they, you know, graduated. But they had to leave their jobs and become cab drivers. Why? Because they're getting 30,000-40,000 a month over there, and they were getting 10,000-12,000 over there. They have to run their families. They have to send money back to their, you know, villages and so on. So this.
But it's a great job. You're getting more than you would.
You know, but the point is not that. So I'll tell you what, Sarah,
Manish can respond to you.
The problem with that is that we are essentially saying, you studied engineering.
Can I respond
now
to
let
this,
go
please?
of that.
Yes, Manish, I'm coming to you next.
You studied engineering. Now let go of that. You gave your years of life to, you know, really thinking that you're going to become something. Now let go of that and become a cab driver. So again, it's I mean.
But do you want to earn a salary at the end of the day that you can provide for your family? A job is a job, says Manish.
The lady here spoke about dignity. I think I agree with her.
Okay. Let Manish respond and then both of you can respond. Manish, go ahead. Would you come in here?
Yes. So, you know, the world has produced more graduates in the last 35 years than the 800 years before that. So what does that mean? It means 60% of taxi drivers in Korea now have a college degree. It means 31% of Walmart checkout clerks in the US have a college degree. It means 15% of high-end security guards in India have a college degree. I don't think college is a guarantee of anything. I don't really give a damn if you've done an engineering degree. What employers care about is what can you do. And you know, frankly, if people are going to say that a taxi driver earning 40,000 is not worth it or it's not a dignified job, I don't know which world these people live in. Finally, we are not talking about happiness. I know a lot of rich people who are unhappy, and I know a lot of poor people who are unhappy. We are talking about a living wage, We are comparing that and moving up from what was a minimum wage. And it is absolutely ridiculous to assume that just because you've got a degree, the world deserves to make you happy or pay you some amount of money. There are a lot of kids in India who work very hard, who do not have degrees, and who get a lot of jobs. There are a lot of unemployed graduates, of course. So, we have to move away from this guarantee. You want a guarantee, go buy a toaster. A college does not guarantee you anything. You are responsible for your own employability. There are 25 million new Provident Fund payers in the last 3 years. There are 17 million new ESI payers in the last 3 years. There are now 125 million people in formal employment. I completely take objection to some of the numbers you are flashing on your screen, because there are 30 million certified people extra in Provident Fund, and there's 17 million. So the notion that India is only 10% formally employed is wrong. It is between 20 and 25%.
Okay, we're only flashing government data in our graphics, but Manish, we have Geeta Tyagi here who's the placement head. Hold on, let Geeta respond and then you come across. Geeta, Manish is saying your youth is just too entitled. Nobody owes you a thing. If you want a job, you have to be capable for that job.
That's what I'm coming up to. See, I represent, Vocational Training Institute. We not only train core area of ITMS for graduates, we train undergraduate students also. We are not talking about that. That's a huge percentage of that.
Respond quickly.
Right. So they said you do graduation, student did graduation. Now you said you have to be core trained on the vocational, they did vocational now. Now you're talking about they should have this, that. When you talk about wages, see, they expect employability, they talk about maturity, attitude, you should know about the corporate skills, blah, 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 blah. And finally, they end up paying 6,000 to 7,000, even 10,000. My question is, how is the student going, how are you going to motivate this young generation? How you're going to...
I just want to say one thing. I completely agree with what Manish is saying. Nobody is entitled to a job. In fact, Manish wrote a phenomenal article in the Indian Express about this whole issue of wages being a problem versus jobs. And I also agree with what he said, which I want to really re-emphasize over here, that in our education system, what we're really missing out is the key skill of relationship building. We don't, young people do not have that as a core skill. So you always struggle when you really go out in the job market. But at the end of the day, the concern here, which, ma'am both actually mentioned, is expectation versus reality. That expectation setting needs to be done right. You can't go and say that everybody will have the best job in the world. There obviously will be discomfort and this.
Yeah. Okay, ma'am, you don't have a mic. Hold on, let's get more. Ma'am, you don't have a mic.
It has to go to school, It has to be ingrained.
You don't have a mic. You can't be heard. You don't have a mic. You can't be heard.
Yeah.
I am, you can say, a skilled labor from West Bengal. And I have certain questions to ask to you, because you have used certain terms like training and development, personality development and skill development you have talked about. Let me tell you that I have penetrated into this and I have found out that maybe you have suggested, some ministers of yours have suggested.
So get to the question, please.
Yeah. The thing is that you talk about Mudra loan. Mudra loan, it is not easy to get a loan for the unemployed youth. If you can issue loans for the diamond merchants, but if unemployed persons goes, you cannot issue. If the large population
people got the loans,
large population, I'm saying
how can you say that no one got the loan when 8 crore people got the loans?
I have penetrated into your micro, small, medium enterprises, MSME. They have introduced different training, skill development training institutes. All of them give training. Those trainings are focused. And they are concentrated only to those states where the central power is over there. What about West Bengal? What about other states?
What do you do, sir? What do you do?
Sir, I am basically, I do job, but at the same time, I am also engaged in different types of social activities.
No, but what do you do? What job do you have?
I am engaged in sales and marketing in education.
But you've applied for all these loans and they haven't worked. So you're saying policies are made, but the implementation doesn't work on the ground.
You haven't applied and you're saying you have penetrated enough.
1 second, get some more audience reaction.
I'm sorry, you don't have facts.
Actually, problem is with this education system. We have the engineering colleges in the far distant places where there are no labs. We have the medical college. I am from the medical. I am a doctor in AIIMS. We have the medical colleges from far distant places where are no patients, no machines, no MRI machines.
No, I'm sorry. There are patients everywhere in this country. In rural areas, there are no doctors in rural areas. Why don't you guys go and work in rural areas?
There are medical colleges, but there are no patients because they don't have. There
are no patients in rural areas.
Yes.
Why are the Dhanamandis of the world having to go so far?
They don't have infrastructure. They don't have any labs and any machines.
So he's saying patients don't come because of lack of infrastructure.
They don't have
enough. People fall ill.
Okay. Okay.
They are not sufficient to serve the patient. They are just for the sake of name. They are the colleges, medical colleges there. But
there are too many colleges that are coming up, and we don't know what kinds of students are graduating from these colleges. They are unemployable after that. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, it's happening with the engineering colleges. It's happening with the educational B.Ed, JBT.
You know,
I just wanted to just
one small thing on self-employment. I want to say, Sarah. I don't think there's any other in economic history of other countries, developed countries who over the years, decades have developed. I don't think any other country experienced a stage where they were industrializing rapidly. India has also seen about 20 years of good growth, right, 25 years, where the self-employed population is nearly 50%. So there is something wrong with this. It's a puzzle. I don't know how to crack this. Manish Sabharwal is right. Nobody has a right to employment, but there is a lot of low quality employment in our country. Mudra loan, I read some of the numbers on Mudra. First of all, there is about 8-9 crore loans which are shown on record, but 65% of them had already existed, were taken out of those women self-help group loans which NABARD, State Bank had already given, right. Besides that, the average Mudra loan is about 22,000 rupees. Now, I sometimes wonder whether 22,000 rupees, if somebody borrows, how much employment can he provide with that money? So
he's going to make himself employed first. At
yeah. So no, but you're also saying he'll employ more people. So that is
you're talking about average, right?
Look, venture capital starts small, so it's all right. Okay. Even if you start with 22,000, you can make that 22 crores if you have got the right attitude, the right skills.
So you're right. So one has to wait for the outcome of that to realize how much employment it generates. You can't say that this is already employment has been generated.
It's good because it's one of the inputs to creating employment. Having venture capital is one of the very important inputs, and I think one thing we can say, I don't agree with a lot of things this government does, but this is one government that's truly understood the role of the entrepreneur. It is trying very hard, this ease of doing business. We were gone up 30 places because it is actually true that the life of the entrepreneur is improving. But we still have far to go because we were only 100.
Okay, so they've given an impetus, a push to being an entrepreneur. Go ahead, get your reaction quickly.
I am from medical field.
Achha.
I am doctor at AIIMS. So what we are lucky that our employment is demanded by the public. Public want that doctor must be employed. Doctor must come to a rural area. So what the government do is that government came up with the solutions like a bonds and a contract based employment. The bond is like if I have graduated, I have done my MBBS, then I am liable to work in a rural area. Otherwise, they will put it on me like a 2 crore or a 3 crore.
Yes, because your education is subsidized.
Education is subsidized. But the thing is, the problem comes is with the tagline, they says that because the government don't want to work in rural area, but the reality is there is nothing to work in rural area. It is just in a sub centers, and CSCs, PSCs are only of the name. They are only the rooms without any infrastructure.
So he's mentioned the point about the infrastructure. But if your education is subsidized, do you not have a duty to serve the poor in the country, whether there's infrastructure or not? At least do your 2 years and then move on. Any other problems? He's talked about infrastructure.
First thing we have to realize that it is not only about medical sciences, is not only about the education, it is not only about the skills, it is also about the technology, it is also about the other equipments and infrastructures. If they tell me that you are graduated from AIIMS, now stand on the road and treat everyone here only, I can't do much, because I need a complete hospital setup to work
Fair
for.
enough.
It's not only that just because I'm an AIIMS graduate, I will stand on the road and I will treat everyone.
Is that there's also something called attitude. What we are debating, what I'm listening in this debate, The most interesting divide is between those who feel entitled, I've got a degree and I'm entitled to a job, versus those who come with an attitude of, look, I can do it, I will, whether I'll get a mudra loan of 22,000 or whatever I will do. In fact, the mistake employers make is they are always very impressed. IIT, IIM, Wharton, let's take him, and he turns out to be a flop because he has the wrong attitude. We should be. That's what relationship.
I actually have a bit of a quarrel with this. We have to go in for a short break. I'll come back to you, Namita. But you know, the Prime Minister talks about this whole demographic dividend that India has. Could this also become a demographic nightmare if there are no jobs? We'll continue this discussion after a short break. Stay tuned. Don't go away. All right, we're talking about whether there's a job crisis. Namita, you were making a point when we went into a break.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I actually disagree with, I'm hearing a lot about education and about entitled young people. I would say if I went to an engineering college, I would not be out of place to feel that I'm entitled to a slightly dignified job, not really becoming a taxi driver, but getting an actual job that I've been trained for. And if you travel across, and I've been traveling and meeting parents and meeting young people, I mean, education is the great big hope of this country. People, poor people, take loans, send their kids to school, who's to blame? You're saying that these kids come out entitled. They have a right to be entitled because we've told them that education can help you change your life. And now we're telling them it's not exactly true, you need other skills. Well, who's responsible for giving them those skills?
I mean, you separate aspiration and entitlement, they're two different, you know.
Yeah. Yes, but
okay, let's go across to some of your students. You're all studying, you're invested in education. Yes. Respond to what Namita said.
You can't blame them.
Ma'am, हर साल
नहीं, मैम कह रहे हैं कि if students who have invested in an education, whether you've gone to do engineering or being a doctor, you are entitled to a job.
नहीं, हमें तो जॉब मिल ही नहीं रही, क्योंकि जॉब की क्रिएशन जो हम पहले ही पूछ रहे हैं कि गवर्नमेंट हर साल जॉब की क्रिएशन डिक्रीज कर रही है, क्योंकि 2014 में भी जहां पर एसएससी में 18,000 वैकेंसी होती थी, इस साल 7,000 पे आ गए. सिविल सर्विसेज में भी
नहीं, बट सर हक तो नहीं है ना आपकी नौकरी. यू हैव टू गो समवेयर. इफ यहाँ पे नौकरी नहीं मिल रही है तो गो टू एन इंडस्ट्री जहाँ पे शॉर्टेज है. वो आपकी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है. नहीं,
हमारी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है जाने की, लेकिन यहाँ पर इंडिया में तो हो ही नहीं रही अब जॉब क्रिएशन.
ओके, गो अहेड. मोर रिएक्शंस.
इंजीनियरिंग में 2010 में 6 लाख सीट्स थी पूरी कंट्री में, उसको बढ़ा के तो 16 लाख कर दिया गया, लेकिन इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर है नहीं हमारे पास लैब्स नहीं है, हमारे पास टीचर्स नहीं है अच्छी क्वालिटी के. तो हम अगर हम इंजीनियर्स प्रोड्यूस कर रहे हैं तो उनकी क्वालिटी होगी नहीं हमारे पास.
Okay, so the seats, colleges keep growing and the number of seats keep growing, but the jobs don't keep growing.
I think the government has made policies by giving bank facilities, bank loans for industries and agriculture. So why does the youth has only been depending on the government?
Okay, Anshul, is the government job still the panacea to all ills? Is that what the youth wants today? Before, in the generation before me, it was the be all and end all of everything was to get a government job. I thought things had changed.
No. See, there is again no way to say that this is what the youth wants, because again, diverse backgrounds, diverse upbringing, diverse needs. But to a very large extent, young people who are coming from smaller towns look at stability, and government jobs become that one thing that, you know, kind of guarantees some stability to you. So in a way, yes, people do look up to and look forward to government jobs to a very large extent. But at the same time, you know, there is of course entrepreneurship coming up. Young people are extremely entrepreneurial, but entrepreneurship is also, and really good entrepreneurship is also slightly about privilege. It's slightly about, you know, knowledge, access,
absolutely,
ability, all of that. I started Youth Chaos when I was 17, only because I had privilege. I had the internet already in front of me, so I could start it.
Correct.
But
and there
so
are
many
people who
others
could give up colleges, drop out of college, and then, you know, still be a success, but they're privileged.
I mean, there is complete obsession with government jobs still. That's why in a state like Haryana, where you have Ghungat and patriarchy almost entrenched, but girls are playing kushti, they're boxing, they're playing volleyball, and they're being encouraged by parents to do so in the hope of getting government jobs. So government jobs is definitely a reality.
Sir, I want to say something here. I once heard a BJP MP get up from Rajasthan, and he said, why there are 25 lakh odd, if I remember the numbers right, Anganwadi workers, women workers, who actually work with, who put in hard work, you know, in the Anganwadis. why don't their jobs get regularized? This was a BJP MP raising this, and across party lines this was a demand. Now why don't we retrain them? Now here is an area which is a low hanging fruit. Government can train them, retrain them, and give them a slightly better emolument. So why can't we do this?
And better pay.
Okay, so there is low-hanging fruit that the government hasn't reached out.
This also goes to the attitude bit that, you know, when you retrain, you also change a person's attitude.
Yeah.
And they're all women, Anganwadi, all women workers.
Yeah, even with younger
government jobs. Primarily, the government is a facilitator for jobs in the job market. Now, this government, what is our problem with this government? We are in the opposition. That's just one aspect of it. The problem is, instead of they have failed in providing new jobs. But the adventurism of demonetization, the bungling of GST, all this has really sabotaged the existing job market. Wait, just a sec. You said the social unrest. Why don't you see social unrest? Every caste now wants a quota.
If it's Congress,
why is there social unrest? There is a social unrest.
I don't want to end with one party until quick word.
I thought we decided not to do politics.
Then young people want to know what is the social unrest solution.
I say, look,
so instead of blaming,
no, I am a politician. I will talk about politics. What do you mean I am politicizing? You talk about Nehru, you don't politicize. I talk about BJP, I am politicizing. What is this?
Quick
I am a
last
politician, I will talk about politics.
Show's over, hurry up.
People are saying that they are not no government jobs. I was just going through a portal called Sarkari Exam, which is topmost site in the government job. There are 3 lakh government jobs created in state and central government.
What is the demand for the jobs?
In 4 months. And there are a lot of jobs being projected by, for example, UP government has projected 40 lakh jobs through a lot of investments which have come up in next 4 years. A lot of jobs are coming through, so it's actually improving a lot.
Well, we don't know. I don't know if that we're completely out of time. This is not the last we've heard of this. Remember, in May we have a fresh batch of college graduates all coming out looking for jobs. This is not the end, but as we say on We the People, it's important to speak up. It's important to make your voice heard, but it's also important to listen. So until next time, thank you so much. Thank you all. Good night. Thank you. Thank you.